while we're there, we'll go back to that just a second, Marshall. First page. I'm sorry. There's a couple of things on here that we actually need to look at. Obviously, on these, scroll that back down where I can reach up here. There we go. Obviously, you've got 2 lenses on these stop arm cameras. They're going to be on that electric compartment door. When you're walking around, I know that whenever it comes time for bad weather, nasty roads, take just a second, wipe those off. If you even just take a napkin, a blue towel from inside, so that this tool can be effective. The last thing we want is someone to run that stop arm and the view be obscured because we got dirty cameras. So that's just one thing that kind of popped up to my head. Go ahead, Marshall, get me to that parking diagram, please. What Mark was saying about the speed, I was going to mention that, so I'm going to double down on that as well. I realize when you get off your bus run, many people have other places to be, other things that they've got to do, or other commitments. Maybe you got an appointment, maybe you got another job. But when you hit this bus garage gate, I had Chris put those 5-mile-per-hour signs up there myself, and that is not a suggestion, folks. That's what I expect you to drive when you come on that property. 5 miles an hour is enough speed that you're going to make it on around to your parking space, but it is a safe speed. We have a lot of movement going on there. We have a lot of foot traffic. We have a lot of bus traffic. We had accidents last year that resulted in me having to do reports because of that. That's extra work on me for these accident reports that I have to go through the PD to get a police officer up there, to get statements, to get pictures. I have to submit a report to Kentucky Department of Education, and it goes on our roster. Last year we had 15 accidents. So, and we'll kind of get started in this accidents and emergencies part 2, but I also want to use this. So, this has to do more with the flow of work on the backside for my mechanics and inspectors. When I worked as a mechanic and an inspector, whenever we was pulling buses into that inspection bay, I had a little trail that I followed. I had a crack in the concrete that I knew where I had to turn and line up my mirror so I could get on my rack the quickest and easiest, straightest way. I think probably Mike and Bertie have the same thing, okay? And if we've got buses parked all around here, oh, I just need to run in and see Daisy for 2 minutes, oh, I just need to see Rob for 2 minutes, Victoria for 2 minutes, training department, whatever the case is, when you do that, then you disrupt that. Now, here's the thing about it. Our mechanics have got to inspect 7 buses a day in order to meet the fully month requirement to get everybody's bus inspected. And if it causes them at the point, because they're driving school buses, we know that, and we have them have to come around the corner and have to change what they normally do, and it takes them an extra 2 minutes. Rob, what's 2 minutes? Well, 2 minutes one time a day maybe not be critical, but you add that times 4 or 7 buses, and you're talking about 15 minutes. You've added 15 minutes, those guys, you've taken away 15 minutes of their inspection time, and they're crunched. I also have people that come in to do business. We have job applicants, people coming in for training, people from administration that come in to see me, or other people in the building. And when we're jammed up here and they don't have any place to park, it looks bad on our department. We've got ample spaces to park out through there, around the pumps, all around the building, and all we're asking you to do is just not disrupt the flow of traffic for our work. So I'm going to ask you not to park your bus there in that shaded area in your handbook. If you do, I'm going to come directly to you or send somebody directly to you and ask you to move the bus. Not just a minute, I just need another minute. Whenever I send somebody to ask you to move your bus, I'm expecting you to move your bus now, because I've asked you not to park there in the first place. So there's a reason behind that. Also, again, remembering our speed coming on and off campus. We've got a lot of construction going on. A lot of construction going on. So that S-curve up there at the red light, be cautious. That was a wreck trap. We had 2 wrecks there in 2 days a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago actually. So certainly just move slower on campus. South Laurel High School especially, that place is a madhouse. Move slower. There's a lot of equipment, a lot of change has been moved around there. Just move your buses because, again, with the exception of 1 accident, best of my memory, no, actually 2 accidents from last year, the vast majority of our accidents has to do with 2 areas, clearance and backing. Clearance and backing. So just be aware of that whenever you're moving your bus. Make sure you've got clearance to go through wherever you're going through. And make sure you know where you're backing your bus when you back that bus. And if you're not sure on either account, don't do it. It's never safe, as Mark was talking about, it's never safe to pass a bus in that parking lot. Ever. You got a bus sitting out here at the training door. Maybe they're waiting for another bus to pull out so they can pull up and back in. It is not safe to go around that bus. We've got radios. We can communicate to each other. Hey, 1002, what are you getting ready to do? I need to come around you. Let's use the tools we've got on that. Thank you, Marshall, on that part. Speaking of accidents, so most of you, the older drivers, you've heard this. I'll say this to remind you, newer drivers, those that's not been involved in an accident, the protocol for that. I'll let Marshall catch up with me. Sorry, Marshall. Just emergency stuff. We're going to do that very last. Okay, so let's... Okay, that's fine. And we don't need it. You can just leave that screen up there. All right, something happens regardless of where you are. If you're on the property and you have an accident, like we did a couple of times last year, you need to lock your bus down right where it is. Okay? Lock it down where it is. Get on the radio or send somebody into my office, Marshall's office, or Mark's office and let us know so we can come out and get pictures. The insurance company requires that I have, and they're getting worse. They want me to have more and more pictures. So I have to come out and take pictures of the buses, whatever the accident scene is. So if you're on the parking lot, lock your bus down. We'll make everyone aware that we've got an obstruction on the parking lot to use caution moving around. If you're out on your route, in other words, if you pass those gates heading to anywhere that you're heading in a bus and you're involved in an accident, immediately contact dispatch, Marshall. He will contact me and I will contact the appropriate law enforcement agencies and everything that is required. If you have students on a bus, I need to know a couple of things. I need to know your location. I need to know if you or anyone on your bus is injured. And if it's something that you can determine if other people involved in the accident are injured. Now, typically speaking, whenever I call into dispatch and let them know that we have a bus involved in an accident, that activates a code yellow and they send everybody automatically. But if something happens that we have multiple injuries, more than one EMT crew, one ambulance can handle, I need that information to pass that along. Fortunately, that's never been an issue to date. It could happen anytime. While I am en route to your accident scene, I will need a copy of your seating chart. Fortunately, with our alternate drivers that we're going to have this year, you're going to have accurate seating charts. There's no reason not to have. You're going to have somebody available to come drive your route for you while you write out your seating chart, and it'll be done. So that task has just been made much, much simpler for everyone. But that is essential that I have that for the police, want to know about who's on, and they have to have it for their report. Kentucky Department of Education requires that I list it on my report. So I will need your seating chart. When we get to the accident scene, and I say we, I mean me, any other administrators, and law enforcement, they're going to want to see your driver's license. They're going to want to see the insurance card and registration that's in that round holder that we have on the bulkheads. So it's important that you carry your driver's license with you to work every day in the event of an accident. We had one last year that the driver did not have his license, or she, or I can't remember now. The driver did not have their driver's license. I was able to go take a picture, put it on a computer, and email it to the law enforcement officer, and we were good. I assured the police officer that they had a license, they just did not have it with them. So be sure you carry your driver's license. And always remember, I'm sorry? Awesome, cool. Security bus, all right, yeah, at an accident scene. Now, obviously, just like it's going over here, if it's a pretty serious accident involving another vehicle, there's a lot of damage, you're probably not going to be moving your bus very much, and I'm just talking from experience. Sometimes the severity of the accident requires that your bus has not moved any further than beyond the contact. Sometimes it allows us to move the bus a few feet away and secure that bus. Be aware of any smoke, any reason that you may need to evacuate the bus. If you need to evacuate the bus, that's your number one priority. We'll worry about seating charts, driver's license registration later. The safety of you and the kids are first priority, okay? So just like it says here, fire, ruptured fuel tank, tornado, and we'll be in contact with you on that. Stuck on the railroad tracks. Fortunately, we don't have very many routes that have to deal with railroad tracks, but if there was an instance that you did that, immediately, don't sit there and think, oh gosh, I've got to try to get this off the tracks. If you're hung up on the tracks, lock that bus down, get the kids off. Radio us and tell us where you are and well, we can tell you where you are. Let us know, I'm stuck on the railroad track, I am evacuating my bus now. What that gives us a chance to do is be quicker about relaying to dispatch so they can relay to the railroad and stop any rail traffic coming through. Incident, bus in immediate danger. Bus should be visible in all directions, 360 degrees, anytime passengers are in danger. So those would be emergencies to evacuate the bus. Of course, we don't fuel with kids on the bus. We will be conducting our annual emergency evacuations, so just be aware of that. And we should see that with not next week, but the following week will be the emergency evacuations, first full week of school. So we do have that. And then we will go throughout those other things. So just be sure of your communications. If you're involved in an accident, let's be aware, slow down, make sure on your clearances, make sure of where you're backing when you back, and try to let's reduce these accidents. Because I have to talk to insurance companies about the frequency of our accidents. And when we're getting up above, when we get in that 10 and above range, it really catches their attention. We keep it below 10 for a school our size, then it's pretty much normal type of business. But my goal is 0 accidents. That's our goal. And until we reach 0 accidents, we're always going to have room for improvement. So certainly on that. Weather-related emergencies, tornado, obviously we try to do a pretty good job being aware of the weather. And we've held children at school when there was imminent severe thunderstorms that potentially could lead to tornadic activity. Something does happen that you see a funnel cloud You see a tornado on the ground, you see debris being slung around in the path of your bus. Obviously, you don't want to drive it through that. You see a tornado, lock your bus down, unload the pupils, and proceed away from the bus. Try to keep the kids in a group. And this is, and there's a couple of things about emergencies that we don't discuss, that we have tools or can make things to make things easier for ourselves. We don't want to think about having to unload a full bus of kids in the face of a tornado. I wouldn't want to do that with 60 kids on my bus by myself. So what about enlisting the older kids? In the event that we have to, enlisting older kids in case of an accident, in case of a tornado, Johnny and Susie, I'm going to need you to help make sure we get to these little kids, walk with them, the older kids. Now, one thing that we have available to us we don't think much about as bus drivers, what if you're driving down the road and you're running 55 miles an hour and all of a sudden you have a heart issue, that suddenly I'm incapacitated to drive. I can feel it coming on. I'm starting to have a heart attack. I'm in trouble. Do you have a student sitting toward the front of the bus that you trust enough to reach up and pull that emergency brake button? You can do that. It doesn't bring that bus to a screeching halt. It actually brings it to a nice, slow stop. But at any rate, it begins to decelerate that bus regardless of your ability to operate the bus. So in any kind of emergency like that, you want to try to have a child that if you see me slump over, or if you're talking to me and I suddenly don't talk to you, and you keep asking, give a code word or something. If you say to me, Kentucky Wildcats, and I don't say Wildcats back to you, whatever the case may be, in the case of an emergency, it's a great idea to have someone that you trust sitting close enough they can get to that emergency brake button and pull it, and they understand that why. Now, we're talking about an older kid. You don't want to have a first grader to do that, obviously, but an older student. It's those kinds of things that make the big difference in the unexpected that we sometimes can face, certainly. What else we got? Weather-related, severe weather, earthquakes. Fortunately, we don't have that big of an issue here. Severe weather, you always have the power. Everyone here has the power to pull over and secure your bus if you cannot operate it safely in a big, heavy downpour. Or if there's a lot of wind and you know that you're getting ready to go someplace that has a lot of trees, that's subject to have trees blow down in front of you, power lines, whatever. Find a safe place. Pull your bus over, lock it down, call Marshall, let him know, Marshall, I'm going to set this little thunderstorm out. I am parked and bus is secured. We'll resume when this passes. Everybody has the power to do that. Student safety, it's our first thing. Snowy and icy conditions, fortunately we didn't face a lot of that this past year. We have been caught in the past, get the kids to school, have a big snowstorm in the middle of the day and try to get the kids dismissed. If you're ever out there, you still have that same kind of responsibility and same kind of power. Anytime you don't feel like it is safe to proceed, find a safe place to stop, pull off, secure your bus, let us know. Anything else, Marshall? Weapons, arms, of course, that's with the weapons. A student armed, we do not go to the school property. Basically what we have tried to do, we've got situation codes on your radio, 401 and 2, but not a 403 obviously, but so your radio in the proper code, mimic that you've got a problem with the bus. Dispatch, I've got a gauge or a warning light that's telling me to stop the engine, pull the bus over. I will be pulling the bus over with a code 402. And that gives us an idea. And we will give you instructions from there. Anything else I need to cover? Any questions over our handbook? Marshall's done a great job. There are some things that we needed to make to edit throughout there. One of those was field trips, special needs field trips. If it generates a field trip sheet that you get from and return to Daisy, regardless of who the trip is, that paperwork goes to, if it's a field trip, it's a field trip. That paperwork goes to Daisy. I believe it says that it goes to special needs supervisor, but it goes to Daisy directly. Student abduction, that's at 404 we talked about yesterday. You'll call in to us, Marshall, Rob, I have a 404. We're going to need to know the student's name and address, what the child was wearing, and the description of the person or people abducting the child, including vehicle, color type, anything that a distinctive feature, direction of travel, and road name or number. We have a forward-facing camera now that will be able to aid us in that identification as well. So that's another tool that we have in the event that we have this. Heaven forbid we ever have to use this code as well. What else we got? Yep, 402 is a fight, 401 missing student. I thought 1 codes, that's what it was. 4 codes has to do with students, 1 has to do with emergencies. So a 100 code, any of those is where we're going to be using. Now, I know sometimes, just like me standing here now thinking it was a 4 code instead of a 1 code, if you can just remember a code 100, if you can remember that list or you have it posted, wonderful. But at least a code 100 will get us in the ballpark that we know that you've got a weapon issue on the bus. Okay, so I'm trying to simplify that. If you've got it memorized and you know that a 103, you've seen a gun on the bus, then certainly say 103. If you can't remember those codes, just say, I've got a code 100. And we'll know what in the world, because we won't know what a code 100 is, but we'll know to go look for a weapons code, and we'll say, they've got a weapon problem on there. That'll be an indication of that. So that's a good idea to keep it up with those. Radios, try to keep your traffic down to a minimum on your radios to pertinent information. 403s, did you go over about the 403s, Marshall? If you're going to do a second attempt, you do not have a 403. If you make a second attempt and it is not successful, then you have a 403. Just to kind of keep radio traffic down on that. So it's not actually a 403 until you are actively taking that child back to the school. If you're going to drive around, circle around and do 1, 2, or even 3 attempts, it's not a 403 until you're returning them to school. Yes, turn your radios on. I seen that in red. Your radio does absolutely no good if it is not turned on, and even up to last year, there were several instances that I had to break protocol to get a hold of a driver and send a text message. So what am I doing? I'm asking you to violate the policy of not using your cell phone on a school bus because you don't have your radio turned on. And I know there's a lot of traffic sometimes it gets aggravating, but turn those radios on where you can hear us communicate to you. Because there could be some kind of imminent danger you're not aware of, but we are, and we need to contact you, even beyond things that have to do with the students. What else, Marshall? Anything? Student monitors, start recruiting those day 1. Start recruiting those day 1. Victoria has the packets available to you. You just need to see her to get those packets. Those packets, as always, will need to be filled out completely so that we can get those kids trained and what the most important part for them so that they can get paid. Okay, so work with Victoria on getting the packets and making sure that those packets and that information requested is there. Many may not know, if you go to channel 2 on and this works in the T-vans, this works in all the school buses, channel 2 turns those radios into basically walkie-talkies, and you can talk bus to bus when you get out on a field trip.